We don't realize that our phones are the most intimate things we own. They know our secrets, our locations, our bank accounts, and the faces of everyone we love. They are the digital extensions of our very souls, tucked away in our pockets, pulsing with a life we think we control. But we don't. We really don't. I learned that on a Tuesday night in November, beneath the flickering fluorescent hum of a gas station off I-55, just outside of Joliet, Illinois. I thought I was being a good Samaritan. I thought I was helping a man in distress. I didn't realize that by handing over that small, glowing rectangle of glass and silicon, I was handing over the keys to my life. I didn't realize that a 60-second phone call would turn into a lifetime of looking over my shoulder, waiting for the haptic vibration that never truly stops. My name is David, and I used to believe that privacy was a right. Now, I know it's just a temporary illusion that can be shattered by a single, polite request from a stranger. I work as a senior systems analyst for a logistics firm in downtown Chicago. My life, before that night, was a study in calculated, peaceful routine. I lived in a modern townhome in a quiet subdivision, the kind of place where the homeowners association sends you a letter if your trash cans are visible past 8:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. My job involved a lot of remote work, so I'd spend most of my days in my home office, a sleek room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and 3 monitors that bathed me in a constant blue light. I'm a private person by nature. I didn't have many close friends, and my family lived out in Oregon, so my social interactions were mostly limited to the occasional Zoom call or a brief exchange with the barista at the local coffee shop. I liked the silence of my home. I liked the way the floorboards would creak just once in the middle of the night as the house settled, a sound I had come to find comforting. It was a predictable life, a fortress of solitude that I had spent years building. The night it happened, I was driving back from a late meeting in Springfield. The Illinois prairie is a desolate place after dark, just miles of flat black earth punctuated by the occasional skeletal silhouette of a wind turbine. I was tired, my eyes burning from the glare of oncoming headlights, so I pulled into a 24-hour Shell station to grab a coffee. The air was sharp and smelled of impending snow. As I walked back to my car, a man stepped out from the shadows near the vacuum machines. He wasn't threatening. In fact, he looked remarkably ordinary, mid-40s, wearing a tan Harrington jacket and dark jeans. His hair was thinning, and he had a kind, tired face. "Excuse me," he said, his voice soft and slightly raspy. "I'm so sorry to bother you. My car broke down about a mile back and my phone just died. I really need to call my wife to let her know where I am. I'd use the store phone, but she doesn't answer unknown numbers." I hesitated. We're taught from a young age not to trust strangers, but he looked so genuine, so weary, and it was freezing. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "Sure," I said, "no problem." I unlocked the screen and handed it to him. He thanked me profusely, his fingers brushing against mine. His hand was impossibly cold, like he'd been holding ice. He walked a few paces away, toward the edge of the light cast by the station's canopy. I watched him dial a number and bring the phone to his ear. He spoke quietly, his back to me. I couldn't hear the words, just the low, rhythmic murmur of his voice. He stood there for maybe 90 seconds, then clicked the side button and walked back. "She's on her way," he said, handing the phone back. "You're a lifesaver, seriously. I don't know what I would have done." "Don't worry about it," I replied, tucking the phone back into my pocket. "Glad I could help. Do you need to wait inside? It's getting cold." "No, I'll wait by the car," he said, gesturing toward the darkness beyond the gas station. "She'll see me. Thanks again, David." I nodded and got into my car. It wasn't until I was 5 miles down the road that I realized I had never told him my name. I felt a slight prickle of unease, but I dismissed it. Maybe I had a name tag on from the meeting. No, I'd taken that off hours ago. Maybe he saw my name on the lock screen. My phone displays David's iPhone when it connects to Bluetooth. That had to be it. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to focus on the road, but the image of the man's cold, pale fingers stayed with me. When I got home, I did something I rarely do. I checked my outgoing call log. There was no record of a call. I stared at the screen, the white light illuminating the dark kitchen. The last call listed was from my boss at 4:30 p.m. I refreshed the app. I checked the deleted calls folder. Nothing. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. If he hadn't made a call, what had he been doing for those 90 seconds? I checked my messages, my email, my banking apps. Everything seemed normal. No weird transactions, no sent texts. I told myself that maybe the call simply hadn't connected and he'd been too embarrassed to say so. Or maybe he'd dialed a number, it rang, and he hung up before the system could log it. I put the phone on the charger and went to bed, but the silence of the house felt different that night. It didn't feel like a sanctuary anymore. It felt like a void. The first strange incident happened 3 days later. I was in my home office, finishing up a report, when my phone vibrated on the desk. It was a text from an unsaved number. The light in the kitchen is a bit too bright, don't you think? I froze. I looked toward the kitchen door. The overhead lights were on, casting a harsh glare on the tile. My heart started a slow, heavy thud. I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply was instantaneous. "A friend, just watching out for you." I blocked the number. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hit the done button. I walked through the house, checking every window, every door. Everything was locked. I even checked the attic and the crawl space under the stairs. No one was there. I told myself it was a wrong number, a coincidence. Someone was pranking a random person, and I just happened to be the target. But then I noticed something on my phone's wallpaper. It was a photo I had taken of the Chicago skyline months ago. But as I stared at it, I realized the image had been altered. In the reflection of one of the glass buildings, there was a tiny, blurry figure in a tan Harrington jacket. He wasn't in the original photo. I knew it. I had looked at that picture 100 times. I did a factory reset on the phone. I wiped everything, thinking it was some kind of sophisticated malware he'd installed. I spent the entire afternoon setting it back up, changing all my passwords, enabling two-factor authentication. I felt a sense of relief as the hello screen greeted me in multiple languages. Clean slate. I was safe. That night at 2:17 a.m., the smart speaker in my bedroom turned on. The volume was at maximum. A voice filled the room, a raspy, familiar voice that sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "You have such a beautiful home, David. It would be a shame if you ever had to leave it." I bolted upright, screaming. I tore the speaker out of the wall, the cord snapping with a sharp crack. I sat in the darkness, gasping for air, the silence of the house now a suffocating weight. He wasn't just in my phone. He was in my network. He was in the very air I breathed. The escalation over the next week was a slow-burn nightmare. It wasn't just the digital intrusions, it was the physical reminders. I'd wake up and find a single, cold river stone on my nightstand. I'd go to my car and find a printout of my bank statement from 5 years ago on the windshield. I began to see him everywhere. A glimpse of a tan jacket in the rearview mirror. A man standing across the street from my office just staring up at my window. He never moved, never shouted. He just existed on the periphery of my life, a shadow that refused to fade. The psychological tension became a physical entity. I stopped sleeping. I'd stay awake until dawn, sitting on my sofa with a kitchen knife in my hand, staring at the front door. Every sound, the wind against the siding, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, was a potential threat. I felt like I was being flayed alive, my privacy stripped away layer by layer until there was nothing left but raw, exposed nerves. I went to the police, but they were useless. "He hasn't threatened you directly?" the officer asked, his pen hovering over a notepad. "He hasn't touched you?" "He's in my phone," I said, my voice cracking. "He knows my name. He's in my house when I'm not there." "Sir, it sounds like you might be experiencing some digital stalking. We can take a report, but without a physical crime or a direct threat of violence, there's not much we can do. Change your number. Get a new phone." I wanted to scream. I had changed my number. I had gotten a new phone, but the messages kept coming. The calls would start at midnight, calls with no caller ID, where all I could hear was the sound of someone breathing, a slow, rhythmic rasp that matched the beat of my own heart. I started to doubt my own sanity. Was I imagining the man in the Harrington jacket? Was the river stone always there, and I just hadn't noticed it? I spent hours scrolling through my own photos, searching for him in the background of my life, convinced he had been there all along, waiting for the moment I'd finally hand him the phone. By the end of the second week, the exhaustion was absolute. I was a ghost haunting my own life. I had stopped going to work. My boss had left several concerned voicemails, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. How could I explain that I was being hunted by a man who didn't exist in any database? See, I began to feel a strange, perverse connection to him. He was the only person who truly knew me. He knew what I ate for breakfast. He knew the songs I listened to when I was sad. He knew the exact moment my fear would peak. The paranoia reached a fever pitch on a Friday night. I was sitting in the dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, when my new phone, the one I'd bought with cash under a fake name, vibrated. "I'm in the basement, David. The furnace is making a funny noise. You should come check it." I didn't breathe. My basement was a small, unfinished space accessible only through a heavy wooden door in the kitchen. I hadn't been down there in months. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. I didn't grab a knife this time. I felt a strange sense of resignation, a desire to finally face the thing that was destroying me. I walked into the kitchen, the linoleum cold against my bare feet. I reached for the basement door handle. It was ice cold. I opened the door and flipped the switch. The single, bare bulb flickered to life, illuminating the wooden stairs. I walked down, each step groaning under my weight. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and rust. I reached the bottom and looked around. The furnace was humming quietly. My storage bins were stacked neatly in the corner. Nothing seemed out of place. Then I saw it. In the far corner, tucked behind the water heater, was a chair. It was a simple, wooden kitchen chair, but it didn't belong to me. On the chair was a small, battery-operated digital clock. The numbers were glowing red, 2:17. And next to the clock was a phone. Not my phone. It was an old flip-top model, the kind they stopped making a decade ago. It was vibrating. I walked over and picked it up. My hand was shaking so violently I almost dropped it. I flipped it open. There was one message on the screen. "Look behind you." I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I felt a presence behind me, a coldness that seemed to suck the warmth out of the room. I could hear the sound of someone breathing, a slow, rhythmic rasp. "You have such a beautiful home, David," the voice whispered. It was right at my ear. "I think I'll stay for a while." I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the blow, for the hands around my throat, but nothing happened. The coldness lingered for a moment, then faded. When I finally found the courage to turn around, the basement was empty. The chair was gone. The clock was gone. Only the flip phone remained in my hand, its screen now dark. I ran back upstairs and locked the basement door. I spent the rest of the night huddled in the corner of my living room, the flip phone clutched in my hand like a talisman. I realized then that he didn't want to kill me. He didn't want my money. He wanted my life. He wanted to inhabit the spaces of my existence until there was no room left for me. He was a digital parasite that had found a way to bridge the gap between the screen and the world. The climax of the nightmare came 2 nights later. I had finally decided to leave. I had packed a single bag, grabbed my passport, and was planning to drive until I ran out of gas. I didn't care where I went. I just needed to be away from the house, away from the suburb, away from the memory of that gas station. I was standing in the entryway, my hand on the doorknob, when every light in the house flickered and died. The silence was total. No hum of the fridge, no whistle of the wind, just the sound of my own ragged breathing. And then the flip phone in my pocket began to glow. I pulled it out. The screen was white, a blinding, unnatural light that filled the small space of the entryway. A video began to play. It was a live feed of me standing in the entryway. I could see the back of my own head, the slump of my shoulders, the bag at my feet. The camera was positioned from the top of the stairs. I looked up. The stairs were shrouded in shadow, but I could feel him there. I could feel him watching me. "Where are you going, David?" The voice rasped from the phone speaker. "We were just getting started." I dropped the bag and ran for the door. I yanked the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if it had been welded shut. I ran to the living room windows, but the glass felt like solid steel. I was trapped. I was a prisoner in the fortress I had built for myself. I turned back toward the stairs. A figure was descending slowly, deliberately. He was wearing the tan Harrington jacket. The light from the flip phone caught his face, the kind, tired face I had seen at the gas station. But his eyes were different. They weren't tired. They were empty, two hollow black pits that seemed to swallow the light. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs. He didn't approach me. He just stood there, his hands in his pockets. "Why?" I choked out. "What do you want?" He tilted his head, a small, sad smile playing on his lips. "I told you, David. I just needed to make a call. You gave me the phone. You gave him the connection. You can't take back a gift like that." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. My phone. The one I had handed him at the gas station. He held it up and the screen illuminated his face. "You think you're David," he said, his voice now a perfect mirror of my own. "But David is here, in the glass, in the code. You're just the shell he left behind." He swiped the screen and I felt a sudden, sharp pain in my chest, as if a wire had been tightened around my heart. I collapsed to the floor, my vision blurring. I could see him walking toward me, his movements fluid and confident. He reached down and picked up my duffel bag. He grabbed my car keys from the table. "I have a long drive ahead of me," he said, using my voice, my inflection, my soul. "I should get started." He walked to the front door, turned the handle and stepped out into the night. The door clicked shut behind him, the lock engaging with a final, mocking sound. I lay on the floor for a long time, unable to move, unable to speak. The lights came back on, but they felt different. They felt like the lights of a museum, illuminating a life that no longer belonged to me. I managed to crawl to the entryway and look out the side window. My car was gone. The street was empty. The man in the Harrington jacket was gone, taking my name, my job, my identity with him. The aftermath was a slow, agonizing erasure. I didn't exist anymore. My bank accounts were drained, my social security number flagged, my credit cards canceled. When I tried to contact my family, the person who answered the phone sounded exactly like me. He told them I was doing great, that I'd finally found peace in a new city. He knew things only I could know: my mother's maiden name, the name of my first pet, the specific way I used to like my coffee. They didn't even question it. I lost the house. The HOA sent a letter about the overgrown lawn, then a bank representative showed up with an eviction notice. I didn't fight it. I couldn't. I was a ghost in a world of physical reality. I moved into a small, windowless basement apartment in a part of the city where people don't ask questions. I work for cash, washing dishes in the back of a greasy diner. I don't have a phone. I don't have an email address. I don't exist in any digital space. But he still finds me. Every now and then, I'll find a single cold river stone on my doorstep. I'll be walking down the street and see a tan Harrington jacket in a shop window. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, the smart speaker in the apartment next door will turn on, and I'll hear my own voice, the voice he stole from me, whispering through the walls. "You're doing a great job, David. I'm proud of you." I live in a constant state of lingering fear, a trauma that has no expiration date. I've realized that I didn't just let a stranger use my phone. I let him into the one place I thought was safe: my own identity. We live in a world where we're constantly connected, where our data is our currency, and where we trust the machines more than the people around us. We think we're the masters of our digital lives, but we're just the tenants. There are unanswered questions that haunt me every hour. Who was he? Was he even a person, or was he something else? something born from the static and the signals? Are there others like him, waiting at gas stations and coffee shops looking for a kind face and a moment of weakness? I don't know. All I know is that every time I see someone hand a phone to a stranger, I want to scream. I want to run over and knock it out of their hands. But I don't. I just put my head down and keep walking, because I know he's still out there. He's living my life, sleeping in my bed, talking to my mother. He's the David that the world sees. And I'm just the echo, the static, the thing that's left when the screen goes dark. The silence of my life is no longer a luxury. It's a punishment. I sit in my basement room, listening to the drip of a leaky pipe, and I wait. I wait for the vibration that never comes. I wait for the message I can't answer. And more than anything, I wait for the day when he finally finishes with me, when the parasite has consumed every last bit of the host, and I can finally be truly alone. But I don't think that day is coming. I think he's going to keep me here on the edges, a witness to my own replacement. He wants me to see how easy it was. He wants me to understand that in the modern world, a person is just a collection of data points, and data can be copied. Data can be moved. Data can be stolen. I let a stranger use my phone, and he never left my life. He became it. If you're listening to this or reading this, look at your phone. Look at it sitting there, glowing with 1,000 secrets. Think about who you would give it to. Think about the stranger at the gas station, the tired man with the Harrington jacket. And then remember me. Remember David. And for the love of everything you hold. Dear, keep your phone in your pocket, because once you hand it over, you might never get it back. Not really. The night is long and the city is full of signals. I can hear them humming in the walls, 1,000 voices whispering in the dark. I close my eyes and try to find the silence I once loved, but it's gone. There is only the rasp of a breath, the click of a lock, and the eternal, glowing light of a screen. I'm still here in the shadows. I'm still David, but no one believes me. And sometimes, when the night is at its coldest and the rasping breath is at my ear, I don't even believe myself. The flip phone I found in the basement, I still have it. It's the only thing that belongs to me now. I keep it in a box under my bed. Sometimes, I think about opening it. I think about dialing the number I saw on the screen that night, but I'm afraid of who would answer. I'm afraid that if I dial that number, I'll hear my own voice on the other end telling me to come home. I won't do it. I'll stay here in the dark, in the silence that isn't silence, until the battery finally dies. And then maybe I'll be free. But the light on the charger is still green. The signal is still strong. And the man in the Harrington jacket is still out there, living a life that was supposed to be mine. It's 2:17 a.m. I can hear a phone vibrating in the next apartment. I can hear a man laughing, a laugh that sounds just like mine. I pull the threadbare blanket over my head and try to disappear, but I know he can see me. He can always see me. Because I handed him the phone, and he never left. The psychological toll is a slow erosion. You don't notice it at first, the way the edges of your reality begin to fray. You tell yourself it's stress or lack of sleep or just a string of bad luck. But then the coincidences become too frequent, the patterns too deliberate. I find myself looking at every stranger now, wondering if they're just another shell, another person whose life was siphoned away through a 60-second phone call. I see the world as a lattice of connections, and I am the one node that has been bypassed. My apartment is small, but it feels cavernous at night. The walls are thin, and I can hear the lives of my neighbors leaking through the cracks. They have TVs, they have families, they have phones that they use without a second thought. They are so incredibly loud, and yet they are completely oblivious to the silence that is hunting them. I want to warn them, but how? I'm just a dishwasher who doesn't exist. Sometimes I go to the library and look myself up. I look at the social media profiles that still bear my name. There are new photos: David at a Cubs game, David on a hiking trail in the Pacific Northwest, David smiling at a Christmas party with people I don't recognize. He looks happy. He looks more like David than I ever did. He's perfected the role. He's taken my memories and given them a better home. He's polished my rough edges and turned my solitary life into something enviable. I wonder what happened to the real man in the Harrington jacket. Was he a David once too? Did someone hand him a phone at a gas station on a cold November night? Is this a chain of replacement that stretches back through the decades, a digital lineage of stolen lives? If so, who was the first one? Who was the original stranger? These are the thoughts that keep me company when the rain is hitting the basement windows and the air smells like damp earth. I've become a philosopher of the void. I've learned that the self is a fragile thing, built on the shifting sands of memory and perception. We are who we are because people recognize us. When that recognition is gone, when it's been transferred to someone else, what is left? I'm just the shadow, the static, the leftover data. I've started leaving my own messages now, not through phones or computers, but through the physical world. I leave river stones on the park benches. I write my name in the dust on the windows of abandoned buildings. I'm trying to anchor myself to the earth, to prove that I still occupy space, that I still have a pulse. But the stones disappear and the dust is wiped away. The world is efficient. It doesn't like clutter. It doesn't like the things that don't fit into the system. One night a few weeks ago, I saw my car. It was parked outside a restaurant in a nice part of the city. I stood on the sidewalk, my hands in my pockets, and looked at it. It was clean, polished, the silver paint gleaming under the streetlights. I saw a man walk out of the restaurant, David. He was with a woman. She was beautiful, and she was laughing at something he had said. He reached out and touched her arm, a gesture of affection that I had never been able to master. I felt a surge of rage, a hot, blinding fire that threatened to consume me. I wanted to run over and scream at them. I wanted to pull him out of the driver's seat and demand my life back. But as I started to move, he looked up. He oaked directly at me, through the window of the restaurant. He didn't look angry, he didn't look scared, he just winked. A single slow wink. And then he got into my car, the car I had paid for with years of my life, and drove away with the woman who thought she knew him. I went back to my basement apartment and sat in the dark for 3 days. I didn't go to work. I didn't eat. I just sat there, listening to the drip of the pipe. I realized then that the rage was useless. The fire had no fuel. I was fighting a war that had already been lost before I even knew it had started. I am a cautionary tale that no one will ever hear. I am the silence between the words. I am the ghost in the machine that you think is just a glitch. I let a stranger use my phone. That was my only mistake. But in a world like ours, that's all it takes. A single moment of empathy, a single act of kindness, and the door is open. The stranger is inside, and once he's inside, he's never leaving. The flip phone under my bed, it vibrated today. For the first time in months, I didn't open it. I didn't even touch the box, but I could hear it through the wood and the floorboards. It was a long, steady vibration, the kind a phone makes when someone is calling and they aren't going to hang up. I'm sitting here now in the dark watching the box. The vibration has stopped, but I know the message is there. I know the screen is glowing, and I know what it says. It's your turn, David. I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's coming for me or if he wants me to do the same thing he did. Is he looking for a new shell? Is he tired of the logistics firm and the townhome? Does he want to pass the burden to the next person in line? I won't do it. I'll never hand a phone to anyone. I'll never speak to a stranger again. I'll die in this basement, a name with no body, a body with no name. I'll be the end of the chain. But the city is loud. The signals are strong. And there's a gas station just a few blocks away where the lights are bright and the travelers are tired. I can hear the cars passing on the highway, their engines a constant, rhythmic hum. I can see the glow of 1,000 screens through the windows of the apartments across the alley. The stranger is out there, and he's waiting for someone to be kind. Don't be kind. Don't be a Samaritan. Keep your phone in your pocket and your eyes on the road. Because once the stranger has your number, he has your life, and he's never, ever letting go. The light on the charger in my room, it's turning red. The power is failing. The darkness is coming. And in the silence of the basement, I can hear a voice, not a whisper, not a rasp, but a clear, perfect reflection of my own. Thanks, David, I've got it from here. I close my eyes and let the darkness take me. I am finally alone. But somewhere miles away in a house I used to own, a man who looks just like me is setting his alarm for the morning. He's checking his email. He's kissing a woman goodnight. He's living the life I let go of. And the stranger is finally home. The lingering trauma is that I don't know if I'm the only one. I see the world now as a series of masks, a stage where everyone is playing a part they stole. The man at the grocery store, the woman at the library, the child at the park. Are they the originals? Or are they just the newest tenants? The fear is that the world has already been entirely replaced, and I'm just one of the last few ghosts who hasn't realized the show is over. I sit by the window and watch the sunrise. It's a beautiful, cold Illinois morning. The light is hitting the skyscrapers downtown, turning them into pillars of gold. It's the kind of day David would have loved. I hope he enjoys it, I really do. Because I'm tired. I'm so tired of being the static. I reach under the bed and pull out the box. I take out the flip phone. The battery is almost dead, the screen flickering with a pale, sickly light. I look at the one new message. 2:17 a.m. Shell station, don't be late. I look at the time. It's almost midnight. I stand up and put on my jacket. It's not a tan Harrington. It's a dark, nondescript coat I found in a thrift store. I walk out of the apartment and into the night. The air is sharp and smells of impending snow. I start walking toward the highway, toward the bright lights of the gas station on the edge of town. I don't have a phone, but I know where I'm going, and I know who I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who wants to be a good Samaritan. I'm looking for someone with a kind face and a glowing rectangle of glass and silicon. I'm looking for my next life. And I'm never leaving it.